Colts and Broncos, Thursday night football between two AFC teams who are kind of going through it right now. Two teams that really struggle in some areas, especially offensively, and have varying degrees of ability to turn around. But this is a really important game, obviously, because we're already getting to the point in the season where you can't really drop that many more games if you're looking to make the playoffs, which both these teams, at least preseason, had aspirations to. Now, whether that was realistic, especially for the Colts, is debatable, but still the case that we're in. So, Colts-Broncos. This Colts team, obviously coming off a loss against the Tennessee Titans, a game in which they looked pretty pathetic, especially offensively, into a Titans defense that is just bad. And if they can't succeed into what they were facing in that game, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some talent there, but those guys were all barely off the practice squad, off other teams' practice squads, barely playing together. They have real injuries. If you can't look good against that team, you're going to struggle. And yes, they do still have a pretty good offensive line, although almost all of them are playing underneath their capability so far this year, and they do have way bigger holes than they did previously, especially a right guard, and even Matt Pryor is kind of finally showing why him as a tackle can be a scary proposition in the NFL. Their offensive weapons, yes, they do get Michael Pittman Jr. more healthy and Alec Pierce more healthy, but let's be clear. I mean, including those guys, especially, and this is a problem I have with Michael Pittman Jr., they're just not really positive playmakers in the offensive side of the football. Yes, Pittman can sit at short, sit intermediate. He can be a fairly big target. He's not a disastrous receiver. He's a starting caliber guy, but he is definitely no more than that. Really, really struggles to beat any actual good corners in a way that gives your offense a ton of value. And the other guys are just so whatever. I mean, Alec Pierce horribly tried to create separation. Now he, still a young player. Maybe he gets better. I don't know if I see it though. Paris Campbell, well documented his struggles as a former high round pick. That is just kind of fast. I do still think he has a little bit to him, but whatever. And then Doolin and Strawn are super whatever, just kind of guys out there running routes, not doing much. So you just really struggle with playmakers here. And this Broncos defense, yes, they're also going through, I should mention, obviously, for the Colts too, no Jonathan Taylor in this game. I don't really care that much. Running backs are running backs. He does matter more than most, for sure. And the way this Colts team plays actually even matters more because of that. But it only goes so far. This Broncos defense also going through some injury stuff. Randy Gregory going on IR, which is actually a pretty big deal. And obviously Justin Simmons has been gone a little bit now, but one of the better safeties in the game still out. So they are coming off a disappointing loss themselves to the Oakland Raiders. But that was a game that had a lot of weird circumstances. And defensively, I actually think they still played pretty well. There are a lot of leftovers still from the Vic Fangio era as far as the way that they're coached, the way that they put emphasis on certain things defensively that I do think is good. It's better than a lot of teams do. So how does it match up in this game? Well, with the Colts throwing the ball, right, is there pass rush still? I would say yes. Will Fries looked bad in his first start. He, is a little bigger than Denny Pinter, so he can push more in the run game, but he's just kind of slow and fat. And Matt Pryor, like I said, especially at tackle, he has real issues, and those other guys aren't exactly perfect. So, yes, Randy Gregory is out, but Bradley Chubb is still a strong, above-average rusher who can push Braden Smith into the pocket, beat Matt Pryor. They're probably going to put Baron Browning on the edge more, former middle linebacker, who actually as an edge rusher has looked way better than I expected. It's just such a weird position transition. And nothing special, but I wouldn't be surprised if he actually can do some stuff in this game. And then Nick Medino, who I believe is a second-round pick, who hasn't really barely played this year, he'll probably step into a big role just given their injury situation. We never know how that's going to go, but at least with Bradley Chubb, I think there's something there. And on the interior, listen, this Broncos team is still good. Draymond Jones is really good. Deshaun Williams is a good player. And while DJ Jones I have my problems with, he at least at times can be a playmaker and a penetrator. So there is some pass rush here more than – it's not like Matt Ryan's going to have all day. And the secondary, even without Justin Simmons, is still really good. Patrick Surtain probably played Devontae Adams, who I think is very clearly the best receiver in the NFL, last week better than I have seen a corner play him in – years, realistically. He's I don't know how consistent that's going to be, but that was that was cool to see. Ronald Darby also has been a good player for a long time. K'Waun Williams are the best slot corners in the league, and Caden Stearns has stepped in and still been a positive player, just like he has been ever since he got on the field last year as a rookie. Plus, Kareem Jackson, one of the most underrated players in the NFL, awesome safety. So you still have a good secondary and a realistic shot at a pass rush into an offensive team that struggles to create stuff, even if it's just left to its own devices. So you're still talking about a struggling Colts offense, and that's just kind of how it is. And, can they run the ball enough to make up for it? I doubt it. The Broncos do still have a pretty good front seven. Their linebackers leave quite a bit to be desired, and that is kind of the one area where I could see the Colts having success in this game for sure. But without Jonathan Taylor, that actually does come up here because he is the difference with this Colts team specifically as far as them running for like 5-6 yard gains and like 10, 20, 50-yard gains, right? And without him, that's just so much harder to find with any level of consistency. It really gets tough. So I have the Colts at 12 to 19 points, and even that is giving some credit to their run game, maybe more than they even deserve this year, and their defense, which we'll talk about too. But yeah, it's about 12 to 19. So for this Broncos offense, also had its huge struggles this year. Russell Wilson has looked like a straight-up different quarterback than he did in Seattle, which is not something I expected. I'm pretty disappointed about it, though I will say there were signs, even more so last game against the Raiders, that he's still there, that he's still mentally able to do the things that he was doing. This offense is just so much different and still bad. Shockingly, he went from like the worst offensive coaching to the worst offensive coaching in football, it seems like. Maybe he's the common denominator, but how does that match up in this game, right? Well, this Colts defense, coming off also similar to the other side of football, really disappointing performance, giving up a lot of plays and yards to a Titans team that was struggling with injuries, especially along the offensive line. It hasn't been very good this year. Now, they do still have talent for sure. You get a hopefully fully healthy DeForest Buckner back this game, and he, I think, would have made a real big difference last game. But you have no Darius Leonard, Shaquille Leonard, which is a big deal. And at safety, we're going to get to some stuff that it's tough. But like I said, we'll get to that. How does this pass game look, right? Is there pass rush? Well, not really. The Colts just don't have talented rushers generally. Like, yes, DeForest Buckner is a relevant interior rusher for sure, but he's been kind of overrated for a long time. He beats like bad players really consistently, absolutely. But when you throw him into some of these better offensive lines, he really kind of loses effectiveness pretty quickly. And that's the case here. While, yes, Graham Glasgow and Dalton Risner have not played up to as good as I think they are so far this year, they have put more than enough snaps together for me to be pretty confident that they're still good and can at least keep DeForest Buckner from like ripping this game apart. And once you get past him, I mean, none of these other interior guys are rushers with any meaningful ability. And on the edge, while Yannick Ngakoue can do his speed rush thing, he can bend the edge a little bit. He's nowhere near the level of like rusher that, again, is going to like destroy an opponent's game plan. We literally saw that last week in a matchup that if he was ever going to truly succeed in, he would have done it there. And he was just kind of good instead of like amazing. And then Kwity Paye, I don't know, he barely shows up as a rusher most of the time. He's athletic. Maybe he learned some moves at some point, but yeah, I don't think it's today. So these tackles, well, yes, I think Cam Fleming is like really bad normally. He's played okay this year. I think he can do fine here, and Garrett Bowles is way better than what he's playing against. So there is like a real pocket environment for Russell Wilson to exist in. And as far as the receivers go, like, yes, I like the Colts cornerback group a ton. Stephon Gilmore is still amazing. Kenny Moore is unbelievable. And Brendan Faison has finally got a true starting option, starting shot, which I like for him, and even Isaiah Rodgers. They're all good players, but some things is that, one, the Colts don't really play this like lockdown, follow your guy around the field type of man coverage. The other teams do a lot heavier zone in general. And while all those guys are really good, it's not like any of them except for maybe Gilmore on his best day are like truly shut down players. So while Jerry Jeudy's been a little bit disappointing for what people thought he was going to be, I don't like Courtland Sutton particularly as a player, and KJ Hamler, like they barely use him a lot of times. They all have varying levels of ability for sure and can all win at least enough routes against their counterparts here to provide like Russell Wilson with some options once we get down the field. And more importantly, the Colts safety situation is tough. Ronnie McLeod, he's still fine. I'm okay with him as a player, but he's not like a difference maker. And their other safety spot, Nick Cross barely played. I don't know if he got hurt. Actually, I kind of missed that. But I do know that Robert Thomas did play, and boy, was he unbelievably bad. He was almost directly at fault for their loss to the Titans in a lot of ways. He just doesn't belong in an on-field field at this point. Now, is that I don't know, maybe he does physically, so maybe he gets there eventually, but it's hard to see. And when you're that bad, you rarely, if ever, see players who are that bad go on to be any level of better. So I'm really, really worried if he gets a large number of snaps in this game. And I think Russell Wilson, with his propensity to get out of the pocket and make plays down the field, can probably hurt and target him a lot. And that's one of the really big differentiators in this game that worries me. And even if he doesn't play, even if it is Nick Cross, I don't have a whole lot of faith in his small sample size either. So there's at least opportunity for this Broncos team, especially given the weakness of the Colts offense. I think they'll be able to do some work. And then running the ball wise too, I like the Colts run defense. I still think their linebackers, even without Darius Leonard, are really good, although Bobby Okereke, I normally think is a really good player, has been passed up on the depth chart somehow this year. That doesn't make sense to me, although he was not very good last week. But I still have faith in him. Zaire Franklin's really good. So there are guys in the run game, I think they're strong enough to do work, but this isn't the same Colts run defense as it was the last couple of years. So the Broncos have ways to move the ball there too. And overwhelmingly, I think the Broncos just have more options. So I don't like their offense or anything like that in this game, but I think 18-26 is maybe even a little bit on the more conservative end. And overall, that gives me a fairly comfortable Broncos win. This Colts team is just not very good. And while the Broncos aren't amazing themselves, they're better in a lot of ways that are important. Betting-wise, this game's kind of whatever. If the line was just 3 instead of 3.5 that it's gone to since Jonathan Taylor got hurt, I would put that one category higher. But 3.5, whatever. That overhanging point is really annoying. But yeah, I think it's pretty comfortably a Broncos win, like I said. And as far as the over/under goes, listen, it's possible Colts only scored 6 to 9 points in this game, unless some real goofy shit happens. So I would definitely trend towards the under in that one as well, but nothing I'm crazy about. So that's Thursday Night Football for you.